Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So if you're watching this is the last video of 2020 on the channel, and it's going to be the third part of the year in review 2020 videos. The first one was talking about the channel in general, kind of some thoughts and memories about the year that was going on in the channel, and some kind of goals and things that I wanted to do in 2021. The second video was my favorite pickups of 2020, which included a top 25 of my Modano cards, and then a top 10 of things that did not include the Modano cards, everything else. So those two parts composed of most of what was going on in the channel. And then the last one that I like to do is the same thing that I've done the last 2 years running on the channel, which is kind of a collecting goals, kind of reviewing kind of the goals that I had last year, and then looking at the year that's going to come in 2021 and seeing what kind of goals that I have. So I actually have last year's list with me right now, and then I'm going to go through it here with you real quick, and we'll take a look at the ones that I was able to get successfully done, and then the ones that I wasn't, and I'll talk about them a little bit, and then we'll get into the new 2021 goals. So to start off with, easiest one was the first one was for the Jamie Benn collection, specifically the Jamie Benn Rookie Year collection. I was trying to get the 62 cards in terms of getting that. The entire checklist is 101, so things had started to slow down quite a bit. I picked this goal for this number because I knew that some of the cards that were left were a lot on the more expensive side, so I knew I wasn't going to necessarily be too aggressive with those. But I did meet that goal. I have 62 exactly. And then I do have a 63rd that is sitting on a ComC order that will probably come in January, so that'll help me towards the following year's goal. But as far as the 2020 goal was, that one was met. The next one is a couple of goals related to the Mike Modano collection. One of them is that I wanted to have the late 90s checklist, and I actually modified this checklist partway through, but based on the checklist I originally had, I wanted to get to under 150 cards left on that Beckett checklist, which I used the Beckett site for. I did meet that. I actually have 78 cards left on that checklist based on the old version that I did. I did expand it later to include 99 2000, which to me is still technically in the late 90s, so it would have changed the number, but otherwise for the goal I actually had and the numbers I was actually using, then I met that goal. The next one I met very easily. And actually, I'll get back to that one in a second. Let me quickly go through a couple of these other ones. One of the things that I was trying to do for 2020 was to work on the Carlos Delgado collection. Well, that fell completely by the wayside, and it'll fall by the wayside the same way that a couple of these other ones did, and I'll explain that in a second. The two that I had under the vintage category were 1960 Parkhurst Hockey. I wanted to complete the set this year. Didn't happen. 1954 Bowman Baseball. I wanted to complete the set this year. Didn't happen. And all of that occurred for the same reason. And that was that this year, obviously 2020, was a very different year in terms of collecting, in terms of life, in terms of everything else. And that's been documented on this channel and in the world and in the news and wherever you want to do it. Because it was so different, it also meant that in the collecting hobby, things happened that we didn't expect. One of them was that because a lot of money got influxed into the market, a lot of cards kind of came out of the woodwork. And that really became apparent, especially with the Modano side of the collecting side. I had my goals for that collection that I was going to try to meet, and way more things that I didn't even expect came out of the woodwork. And because of that, I ended up focusing a lot of my attention during the year on that collection. So needless to say, I met those goals for that collection and then some. And that was at the expense of some of these other goals that I was trying to do. So I'll get back to the Modano collection in a second. The other one that I also had on here was the 2018 Topps Chrome UFC autograph set. Now that's one that's definitely going to slow down quite a bit. I will reference it again in the 2021 goals. But I wanted to get to 25 out of the 33 in that set. I did meet that. So that was a success, and I will be interested to see kind of what that looks like going forward, because that one is getting increasingly tough. But I will talk about that now that we're going to get into the 2021 goals. Now, one other thing before I grab, so this is the new set of goals right here. One thing I'll mention real quick is the reason I like doing these goals videos is, number one, it's nice to see kind of how you progress. Number two, it also gives you the ability to adjust year by year and realize, like, okay, am I being too ambitious with my goals? Am I not thinking through this a little bit? It's an intellectual exercise. It's really something I like to do. It also gives me a focus for the year. It lets me kind of key in on which areas of my collection I really want to work on in the upcoming year. And then that informs the decisions I make. So when I'm looking in eBay and looking at a bunch of different stuff and there's a bunch of things all closing at the same time, maybe I prioritize something based on what I have on the list itself. So for 2021, there's going to be some similarities to 2020, but there's going to be some differences as well. So the first one will start off with the same thing, the Jamie Benn rookie card collection. So that one I'm going to aim for getting to 67 cards. So I'm going to aim for getting 5 more cards. I did mention that one of them is already a ComC, so I'm taking that into account when I made up this number. The reason why I'm only shooting for 5 for the entire year is because I know that the ones that I'm missing now, they're going to get increasingly more expensive. And they're already kind of at that stage. I do have some on my eBay watch list that I think are potential candidates that I can make offers on and do all that. But I kind of want to space that out through the year. So realistically, I think adding another 5 cards to this checklist and getting closer and closer to 70. If I could get to 70, I would consider that really like a stretch goal, so to speak. But we'll work on it. It's like I said, the checklist is only 101 cards total for that year for him. So it's not like I don't already have the bulk. It's just trying to get closer and closer to completion, which is still possible. It's just going to take a little bit of work. The next couple of these, I'm going to talk about the Modano collection here at the end, but the next one is going to be that 2018 Topps Chrome UFC set. I'm going to try to get to 28 out of 33. So just a handful more to try to get a little bit closer. I am finding some of them very difficult to locate. This one is not so much a product of expense as much as just finding them. Some of them I don't know what the short printing situation was with a couple of these, but some of them are definitely a lot more expensive. There's one that's more expensive, but there's a couple that have just been harder to find than I expected. So I think that's a realistic goal. Next one, we're going to talk about a couple of vintage sets. So we'll talk about the 60 Parkhurst Hockey. Last year's goal was to complete it, and we didn't meet that. So I've scaled back a little bit. I want to get to 45 out of 61. So we're going to try to get to the 75% mark, give or take. We'll be a little bit less ambitious this year, although I will try to target it. If I can finish it this year, I will. This upcoming year, I should say. 1954 Bowman baseball set. We're still going to shoot for completing that set. I have made some progress towards that, something that will come in the new year, to at least knock some cards off right away to get us off on a good foot. And we'll try to get that done. The last one here under the vintage category is going to be the 1963 Fleer baseball set. Now, one of the first videos I'm going to have in 2021, I'll let you know ahead of time, is going to be explaining why I'm starting that set, what my plans are for it, and how I'm going to approach it. So all that will come in a video early on in 2021, but I am going to try to get to about a little past the halfway point. So 34 out of the 67 cards in the set. And again, in the future video, I will explain a little bit more about the set, why I like it, why I chose to add it here in the first place, and kind of what my plans and thoughts are of how I'm going to build it and what I'm trying to do with that one. Okay, so that all brings us to the last section here, which is the Modano collection. Obviously, that's the main focus of my collecting pursuits. So that's obviously going to have its own categories with a bunch of different little kind of sub-goals inside of it. So let's start off with the first one. The first one is going to be focusing in on the 90s. Really, that is an area that I really want to concentrate on in the upcoming year especially. So taking 1990 to 1994, 95, so the first 5 years of his checklist, I want to get to 190 cards completed. I want to get to 190 cards in hand. So there's about 205, give or take. So I want to be down to about 15 on the checklist. Get that checklist down to a really small size. Next 5-year period is going to be 95, 96 to 99, 2000. That one, I just want to get the want list under 100 cards. That's really just my general goal. I want to get that want list under 100 cards. That one will certainly be challenging, but I think it is doable. Right now, I need 172 cards. So I think it is very much doable within this upcoming calendar year. Doing that means that I would be sitting at 115 or less in terms of the entire first decade. So from 1990 to 99, 2000, I'd be basically at about 100 cards for all of it, which would be tremendous. And that's kind of what my kind of long shot goal is, to see if I can get there within the calendar year. That I would consider very satisfying, because that section of it is part of my favorite cards and favorite sets are comprised in that time period. So getting to that stage would be a real goal for me. The next one is more general, kind of in the collection, in the Modano collection as a whole. I want to get to 2,000 total unique cards. We're rapidly approaching that. As I complete this year, as I'm filming this right now, I'm at 1,700 unique cards. The 1,700 came in yesterday. There's still a couple of days left. Obviously today, I haven't checked the mail yet. And then on New Year's Eve, there will still be likely some mail, possibly. It may come in or it may roll over into the new year. But whether it does or it doesn't, the ComC order that I will be ordering in the next couple of days for sometime in January will probably add between 140 and 150 cards. So really, the number going from 1,700 to 2,000 is not as daunting as it sounds, especially compared to this past year. Because this past year, when I went in, and I actually don't think I mentioned it. I might have made a mistake on that one. For the general Modano collection in the 2020 goals, I think I might have skipped it, so I apologize. In the general Mike Modano collection, the goal was to get to 1,400 unique. Obviously, I just said I got to 1,700, so I certainly blew past that. But at the beginning of the year, just for contrast, I was at a little over 1,100. And I'll put the exact number on the screen there. But that's what I started off with, and then I finished with 1,700. So obviously this was a very aggressive year, and there were a lot of opportunities to pick up a lot of cards. So by comparison, this is a lot more modest, seemingly. But part of the reason for that is because there's a lot of commons and base cards, low-end inserts and things like that I was able to get this year that really bumped up that card count that are not available now that I already have them. There's still certainly a ton that fall into that category, so I don't think that'll be too much of an issue. But it gives me a nice round number to be able to slow down and then focus on some of these kind of sub goals that I have. One of them is to get to 350 plus memorabilia cards by the end of the year. I think that's certainly doable, and I'm well on my way there. I'll put the numbers on the screen just so that you have context for where we are right now. And about 175 certified autographs. Again, I think that's very much within the wheelhouse. I know I still have some that have yet to come in the mail, so that number is going to get bumped up, but I'll give you the number on the screen again for context, just to know where we are. That right there is already a pretty solid list. So those are the kind of the goals that I'm going for in this upcoming year. This past year, we met a fair number of our goals, and part of that was really due to kind of the timing and everything. Some of them just weren't possible because there's only so many dollars. You can only stretch the dollar so far. But that's why I say it is nice to have a set of goals, because then you can narrow your focus and decide kind of what's important to you. And that's really the takeaway of why I even bother doing these goal videos. In addition to keeping track of what I'm doing, it also lets me kind of decide, well, what do I actually care about? What is more interesting to me? If I have to choose between card count and then meeting one of those sub goals, is that more important? Do I want to try to finish that UFC, autograph set? If the opportunity presented itself, sure. And maybe that would, supersede one of these other goals. Vintage, I think, is an area that in 2021 I really want to put a little bit more of a focus on. So getting to some of the more modest Modano goals then lets me put more of the focus on the vintage. So it's all kind of balancing these things out and trying to put things in a better state. One of the other things that I want to really do in the beginning of 2021 is start off slower. And having a couple of more modest goals that don't require me to pursue them as aggressively is going to help me with that. And then also let me have some reserves in case some of my major grails come up. Because that was the big issue in 2020, is that I wouldn't have been so aggressive had there not been so many available cards that I had been pursuing for a long time. So you have to be, one other thing I'll mention to you about these goals is that you have to be adaptable, because these are my intentions. My 2020 goals were also my intention, and some of them I just couldn't do. So I made a decision not to pursue certain parts in order to allow me to follow through and go above and beyond some of the other goals I had. Stuff happens. I may not be able to make some of these. I may be able to get all of them. It's hard to tell. And at this stage, it's too soon to know. So that's kind of the way that I think about the whole goals thing and how I use it to help me focus and harness my collecting in the best possible way for me. And then you have to figure out what works for you. So that's it for that. That is the third part of this series. One more thing I'll mention to you, just kind of a couple of things coming up on the channel. The live streams are going to continue in 2021. I think I already mentioned that in the first video, but I'll just reiterate it. The live streams will continue. I'm going to figure out kind of what the schedule or cadence is. We'll play it by ear as things go along. The other thing is this won't be the last video you're going to see from me this week. It's the last video of the year, but not the last video this week. It'll be the 93rd video overall for 2020 in terms of recorded videos, along with 20 live streams that we got to this past Sunday. But the first video of 2021 is going to be on New Year's Day. It's going to be the pickups video, because I did get a couple of cards in this week that officially crossed over into the cutoff for 2021. Because January 1st will be the first Friday of the year, and you know what that means. So just so you know, that's how we're going to start off. And then I've already got some plans to record some other videos to get 2021 off to a good start. So we're going to try to do that. So with all that said, I do appreciate the support throughout the year. Everybody who's made comments, everyone who's made suggestions, everyone who's participated in the live streams, hit the thumbs up on the videos. And of course, that you've watched the videos or gotten anything out of them throughout the year. I am appreciative of that, and hopefully we'll have more to do in 2021, and we'll be able to enjoy that, and it'll be a better year for all of us. With all that said, have yourselves a happy and healthy new year. Hopefully we can get off to a good start in 2021 and continue from there. Thanks.